Hello, and welcome to another day, another show, another episode of my channel. My name is Jose. For those who are new to my channel, my name is Jose. I do a bunch of different things. Hopefully you can hear me. Sorry, there's a bit of sound going on here. Um, what do you call this? All right, turn this on. Okay. Um, I do a bunch of things. So mainly it's microastrology, or I like to call it microastrology. I work with over like 150 asteroids. I've done my own research on it. It's like really extensive and it's highly detailed. Like my readings go from between 2 to 5 hours because it's so detailed. Like things that you probably like, how did you know that? How did you know that? People tell me all the time, whoa, how did you know that? Yeah, that's what the asteroids will show. The other thing though, I do music as well. I'm an instrumental music player, musician. You can call me that, but it's in my channel. Look at all this stuff. I'm not here to promote the music right now. It's but I also do languages. Like I love languages. I don't study it. I don't do the grammar. I don't do any of that stuff. Very natural, very organic. I like it that way as much as possible, as organic as possible. So that means like no grammar, no translation, unless it's a means to an end, and that's it. But look at my channel with that one. But today I wanted to talk about um, this idea that when we talk about release from attachment, sometimes there's stuff going on in the spiritual community, release from form, attached to form, detachment, all that stuff. Sometimes it's not as easy as we think it is, but we can actually do it through discovery of astrology and to the you can say in this case the study or the reading of the mythology and what it means for us. Like if you look into the symbology of the mythology, you can find that. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to share my page here. I don't often do this. Well, actually, I do, but we'll see what happens here. Mm, okay, let's see what we have here. Let's look at several things. First of all, oh, sorry, 1 second here. Okay, just share my screen. I'm going to go on this image here. Okay, so let's see here. So we've looked at several things, but before we go into this one, I wanted to, you see Verona there? I'm going to go into that one. I'm going to stop sharing for a second here. I want to talk about the fact that when we talk about attachment, like what is attachment? Isn't that the ego latching on to identity, meaning that the reality we see is the reality we see? Well, actually, it's funny because it is real. Even Bashar says, yes, it is real, but ultimately it's not real. You think about it this way. So materialization, right? Think about materialization. Think about crystallization. Think about how things form. You look at energy itself. Energy is thought or many things. Energy is many, 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 many things, right? It could come in forms of thought. It comes from imagination. It comes with many things. But what happens if you look at the analogy of, let's say, just dust particles, right? If you try to clump all the dust particles into one, even moisture in the air, for those who have seen Last Airbender the cartoon series, there was like 4 seasons or something like that, 3 seasons, yeah. Um, there was one where Katara ran into this old lady. She said that there's moisture everywhere, there's water everywhere, and she does this whole thing, and she goes like this. She captures the water and the moisture, and she absorbs it, and it becomes just like droplets, and she turns it into ice. So you see how anything is possible if you actually look at it. If you look at your like fans, if you look at the surfaces, why is it that you have dust on the surfaces? Well, the dust on the surfaces are accumulation of what's there. So if you look at all the particles outside yourself, in your body, in the world, in the environment, they're all basically little small particles that have been clumped into this. So this is technically what it comes to when it comes to form. So today I want to talk about how it's related to astrology, how that can be understood as part of this whole thing. It's actually going to tie in with several things too. So Saturn is one of them. Saturn is about matter. Saturn is about materialization, crystallization. In fact, there is another asteroid that is about matter. I believe that is one of the asteroids called Tezcatlipoca. Um, Imhotep is actually part of this one. Okay, so I'm going to put that in here. So Imhotep, and I believe Tezcatlipoca is here. I'm looking at my sources here. Um, let's see if it's this one. Yeah, it's Quetzalcoatl. He was the it's a really long name. He was the Mayan god of matter. So Quetzalcoatl, and then Imhotep. Imhotep, from if you've seen the movie Mummy, Imhotep he's a priest and all that stuff. He's a mystic. He's also tied to astrology, by the way, and mathematics and science, architecture and design and all that stuff. And he's a mystic. So anyways, Imhotep is matter as well. But there's Saturn and then also Varuna. So how am I going about this one? So if you think about Saturn and you look at the symbolism, the astronomy of Saturn, you look at Saturn itself, right? He's about boundaries. You look at what do you call it, the rocks, whatever mini asteroids you can say, or whatever pieces like to matter around the rings of Saturn. Rings of Saturn is exactly like that. All rings are like that. They're matter, right? But in Saturn, Saturn represents that. It's been there for over 2,000 years. It's been analyzed that way that Saturn is like that. Um, but Saturn rules matter like crystallization. Um, I mean, the astronomy won't really show it. I don't know. I'm not really sure. I haven't done a lot of research on the astronomy, but the story does. So he's about boundaries and matter. And if you look at the story of Kronos, he's always represented by this earth, this huge, massive earth that can devour things, right? So he tried to devour his children, all that stuff, because he wanted to stop them. That's boundaries, that's limitations. Fear. He was afraid that people, that his children would take over and overthrow him. Okay. Um, but Varuna is a high vibration of Saturn. And so Varuna is actually a wrote here. I came to sort of summarize what he's about. He's the absolution of imbalance by adhering to natural laws. So what you need is patience and introspection. It's not just like your Saturn typical like great limitations. And Varuna is like understanding that there's reasons for limitations, but actually crossing that as well. He's about bridges. That's with Varuna. He's about adhesives. He's about putting things together, coming together, molding things together, not at the expense of, well, anything really, but he is kind of like that boundary stuff. He's more about realizing that there's more to life than just what's on my side, if that makes sense. Okay, that's how I understand Varuna. Okay, correct me if I'm wrong. Because Varuna is a dwarf planet, he's way out there. So Varuna is healing. It's actually Varuna rules water. It's funny because it's like, well, isn't Saturn Earth kind of thing? But I'm like, no, planets don't really carry the elements themselves. It's the signs and the houses that do. Mostly it's the signs. However, Saturn is that kind of limitation that's kind of like Earth, and Verona is kind of like water. So it's kind of like in a way you think about Verona as like remolding of the Earth because of high vibrations. Not so much about having like this kind of hard matter and stuff. No, it's kind of softening the matter and then changing into something else. That's Verona. So how is this tied to the attachment stuff? Well, if we looked at Venus, for example, we know Venus is, it's popular goddess, whatever. There's a song about it, right? I'm your Venus, I'm your fire, your desire. Okay, so so Venus is self-worth or value, esteem, things that we estimate. Comes from the word estimate, like estimado in Italian, and actually Catalan actually has that estimo, right? So Aphrodite is kind of similar. However, Aphrodite is more about inner love and beauty. It's very similar to Venus, but Aphrodite is a little bit more like looking inside because there's a warlike aspect to her, unlike Venus. Venus is softer. Um, Yeah, surprise, surprise, right? Aphrodite has a bit of a warlike thing about her. So they're slightly different. So because Venus is an asteroid, astronomically speaking, but it's about the beauty. So what I'm trying to get here is that we cannot be completely released from attachment. Why? Because then we would have to get rid of an aspect of ourselves that is represented by Venus and Aphrodite, which is often like beauty and appreciation of it, right? So we can't. We always value something. So how do we change a value? When we change our belief system. And Bashar, I was watching these videos about Bashar. He talks about beliefs all the time. It's our beliefs, what we believe about something. And it comes down to like what we've come to believe from childhood. It's unconscious. Which brings me to my next point, which is if you look at matter and how we form it, it's kind of similar to like the analogy of the dust and go clumping up, right? It becomes harder and harder. Same thing as we get older, we start to calcify our beliefs as we get older. You know how when you turn 17, once you turn 17, you start to become like a young adult, barely 17 or something. So you start to form harder, like beliefs in yourself about the way you see life, about something. The key is not to so much really to let go of the actual like values we have. We have, that's great, but it's about kind of softening it a little bit. So there's the Varuna effect as well there, bringing water into it, recreating that form into something else. Just because you have clay or it's become like a pot, there's no reason why a pot cannot be recreated into something else. This is Varuna. Varuna is transition, reformation, right? So it's like, like that. Okay. So how do we do that also with values? Well, don't let go of the values that you have, but think about what that value represents in terms of how you relate with others. That's also Venus. That's also Aphrodite, goddesses of love, right? So how you relate with each other. So sometimes you have to make well, not sacrifices. Don't take my word for that. As Teal Swan puts it, it's like a win-win situation. Look for zero, don't play the zero-sum game, right? There's always a third option, always a fourth option, whatever. So that's going to come together. So what I'm going to show to you is like I'm going to show you what starts. Actually, I don't know why I wanted to do that, but I'm going to show it to you the page that I was in. Okay. So if you looked at the mythology of Varuna, and if you looked at, I'm just going to give you an example. You could look up Aphrodite as you do this. It's a little slow right now, so I apologize. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so are these deities Hinduism role underwent significant transformation from them. So right there, you already getting the actual information. Remember the videos earlier? I don't know if you've seen it. I've posted videos on how when you look at mythology, sometimes there are parts of it that can make sense throughout the whole thing. Look for patterns when you make your own cheat sheet. Um, so Varuna is God sovereign, ruling the sky and embodying divine authority. Okay. And he's also mentioned as a king of Asuras, or gained status of Deva. Okay. He maintains truth and virtue. I don't know what that is. The cosmic moral order is evoked as omniscient, ethical judge with the stars and blind watchful eyes or spies. Okay, that's part of that as well. Just observing represents the magical and speculative aspect of sovereignty, overseeing relationships between gods and humans. So it's a relationship with your higher self, right? Transition from Vedic roots. We're as beginners. Okay, firmament to water. Shift from the firmament to water. So you see how water is part of that. Okay, so it's on Wikipedia. So actually, I'm going to redo my research on this one. Sometimes I redo some of that research and I realize it's like, oh, there's something missing there. But anyways, so you get the point. Okay. There's another thing I want to add. When it comes to, there was something missing I mentioned. When it comes to that whole like the dust analogy that I gave, if you think about sand and little particles, there is a sign or and also a house that rules this, and that's Virgo. Virgo rules sands, which actually I'm going to probably add in here too. I would say there's also things like what is it Sethos or Seth, the asteroid Seth or Sethos. He rules sands because he was banished to the deserts. he will send. So you look into that. It's all about bringing the unconscious to the conscious, learning from that. And this is Virgo as well, because Virgo wants to be pure and perfect. And so once Virgo is about also habits, Virgo is about work and service. And when something becomes work and service and you wanted to perfect it, you work hard at it. But what happens is on the way, things become mundane, repetitive, so unconscious. So its opposite sign, subconscious is in this 12th house, which is Pisces, is similar to that as well. But then you have these square signs to Virgo, which is Sagittarius and Gemini. They rule the third house and the ninth house, which is all about consciousness. In fact, the third house is consciousness, whereas the ninth house is super consciousness. Um, so it's about bringing awareness to that. So there's nothing wrong with the subconscious or the unconscious. It's just the way life is. When we repeat things and these things start to become perfect, or things start to mold. You look at the sixth house, and you wonder, okay, if it's unconscious. When I say unconscious, I mean we're talking about this whole we have an unconscious belief about things. The beliefs, when it becomes unconscious, we're not aware of it, it becomes a subconscious belief. So it starts to rule our lives, which is funny because that kind of ties in exactly with Saturn. But then you bring in Varuna there, which is a high vibration of Saturn, it all of a sudden makes sense. It's like, oh, you don't have to have the limitation, you don't have to have the fear. You can still have values, you can still have limitations and boundaries without the unnecessary fear behind it, the fear-based egoic. You know, Saturn also rules Capricorn, and Capricorn rules the 10th house. 10th house is ego, okay? This reputation. So we're concerned about those things. So Venus is the same thing. Venus rules um the sign of Taurus. Taurus is boundaries. Yes, there's also boundaries there. Earth is pretty much boundaries. There's also Venus also rules so because of Taurus, Taurus rules money. So money is freedom, earning ability to make money. So when that becomes a value, becomes an actual belief. Value and belief, you see how they're similar to each other, right? Do you see how this is all connected, right? It makes sense, right? I love this. So when it becomes unconscious, either of these values, these beliefs, these limitations, these fear, it's when it's all fear-based, it becomes this sort of like becomes like this habit. It starts to control us, just like how Saturn or Kronos tried to rule, stay in power by eating his children, eating his children. It's symbolic, right? Varuna is there to go above that. Venus, actually, the high vibration of Venus, is not Aphrodite. It is Neptune. Neptune is about unconditional love. But also what is past Neptune is Haumea. Haumea is the ability to regenerate. Haumea is the ability to believe that it's your inner belief in yourself to start over. Just because you've had damage from your own personal beliefs, that you had pain and suffering and all that stuff, and delusion, which is represented by Neptune, and the values we've had from previous. You see how it all comes up. And Haumea represents all that inner belief that we can actually say, oh, we can shift, we can start over. Because Haumea also represents rebirth of like shrinking back into child mode and start going again, shrinking back, right? So there's there's that quote, I don't know who said this, but I think it was Gabrielle Bernstein. She said that just because you fall off doesn't mean you can't get up, or something like that. It's having to having to start a is it? I don't know. It's in Buddhism. It's having to, forgiveness. It means having to start over. But you can start over, so it's okay to start over. That's okay. Similar to Varuna, you can start over, rebuild, reform, recalcify, retransform. You don't have to always stick with what's there. So this is how we go into the whole like we can never be attached, released from attachment. So because attachment doesn't necessarily mean it has to be like protective of it. It's not out of fear. Attachment could be appreciation. Attachment can come in a form of appreciation. Attachment can come in a form of um openness and reconnecting with ourselves. Therefore, when we reconnect with ourselves, when we retransform, when we change our values, when we change our what we find, comes in different forms as well. Could be money, could be career, could be all these things, many things. then we start to realize, oh, okay, I can start over. I can renew things. I can have, oh, to reset. And that's okay. Which is funny because ironically, we are going through a reset right now. So that's a lot being said. I feel like I have all these downloads. I have wonderful stuff that's coming through. I love it. I love it. I love it. I hope that helps you guys. I hope this was very insightful, enlightening, however it is. As Bashar would say, um, if you want enlightenment, lighten up. Okay, so I'm just going to leave you with that, with all the love and all that is, and unconditional wholeness and highest good and compassion for all you guys. Um, thank you for watching. Please comment any question, have any questions below, whatever you want to do, and also like and subscribe. And thank you for watching. I love how this all happened. I really hope this helps you. Again, if you have any questions, comments down below. Like and subscribe. I'll see you guys later. Bye bye.